Hey, how's it going, everyone? Just back in with another live stream. Um, just had some time to kill and just winding down the day. And I was going back and forth over email with Bible Defender on various topics. Revelation 13, Revelation 11, and so it inspired me just to go through Revelation 11 again. Which is a very, very powerful chapter. And, one that my position is that it has not come to pass yet, any aspect of it. And so I'll review that. It doesn't hurt to go through it again. And, this is, my expectation of, what's going to be happening very, very soon. And, the things that it's prophesying are things that have happened in human history, but not on a worldwide scale. And that makes it unique. And so we have an expectation that those things are coming to pass because there are many, many things happening, on the worldwide scale. And so, this Revelation 11 fits into that, perfectly. And so that's what I'm waiting for. It's the fulfillment of Revelation 11, which can only happen if, Christ is in the sky, to bring the two witnesses here with him, because they accompany him, everywhere that he goes. And so the elect also follow the Lamb everywhere. And then these two definitely follow the Lamb, everywhere that he goes. So that's, I think people who are familiar with my channel know that, what my position is on Revelation 11. I'll remind people, just in case they're new to this, what these two witnesses are. And they're the exact same two men that have followed Christ everywhere. When he visited Abraham prior to destroying Sodom, when he was on the scene, when he was transfigured, it was Moses and Elijah. In Acts 1, which I'm about to read right now, it's Moses and Elijah. And then we are waiting, and the two angels that were there, when his body was not taken, when his body was not seen in the tomb, it was them, and so, and then in the last days, it's no different. So it's the same two souls, spirits. They're referred to as angels, and they're referred to as men here in Acts 1. So, but it's those two, and so we would expect no different in the last days. And we would definitely expect one of them to be John the Baptist, because, he prepares the way, and so that's no different when Christ was on the scene for his ministry, and, no different in the last days. So it's the same too, and so it's amazing the consistency of the Bible, and, how it's replaying itself, over and over again. And, it's just an incredible thing to see, in the Bible itself, and then have this live out, potentially soon, and then in our lifetime where we'll witness it. So, the understanding that I was given is that the two men in Acts 1:10-11 are the two witnesses. And so the fulfillment of them has not happened yet, because it requires Christ to be in the sky. So, Acts 1:10, and while they looked steadfastly toward heaven as he went up, behold, two men stood by them in white apparel. And so they'll be righteous men, they'll be angels. And then this is Moses and Elijah. Verse 11, which also said, ye men of Galilee, why stand ye gazing up into heaven? This same Jesus, which is taken up from you into heaven, shall so come in like manner as you have seen him go into heaven. And so that's what we expect to happen again, and then the ye men of Galilee will be the ones who will be gazing up into heaven. They'll be looking into the sky every day for this to happen again, because they witnessed it in that time. And so this exact scene is going to play out again. So you'll have to have the men of Galilee on earth, which are the elect. And then this is in Acts 1:11. If you add that together, it's 12. So the 12 disciples represented the elect. But then that verse being in 11 is also a clue as to where it is. The answer to who those two men are is in Revelation 11. Okay. And even the number 11 is like two, ones, like two individuals standing. And so it's placed in that book number, purposefully. And so, it all gives us clues as to the fact that they are just, they're two individuals. And so this scene is going to play out again, for the Bible to be true. And so you'll have the elect on earth, ye men of Galilee, in the last days. And then I don't know how they could not be here at this, with everything that's going on right now. So, I'd have to believe that they're somewhere on this earth right now. And then Christ will be in the sky, okay, just as he was taken away. And then two men will be brought to earth. Their feet will be on the earth, just like they were here. And so I suspect Christ's second coming will involve two men brought here. And then we'll see that, and then the elect are taken away, and so this scene is going to play out again, and so those two men, I was told, are the two witnesses, that's the quote understanding. And so that's the setup, because again, they're being told here that that scene will play out again. And so that scene is also prophesied, in Revelation 1:7. And it's going to be bad news, for the majority of the earth. Revelation 1:7, behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him, and all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. Even so, amen. And so Christ's second coming is prophesied everywhere in the Bible. And then, it's literally everywhere, and it's absolutely central to the Bible being God's word, is that he sends his son back and, to fulfill all the words that we're about to read. So that's the setup. And so we have a reason to believe that we're in those times, first of all, based on the fact that the Bible makes sense to us and is understood, but then also, the mark of the beast has to be out, and to, a significant number of people. And then, so that's a 1-to-1, teaching. So if it's anything in the future, or, I would say the Bible is not true, and then you wouldn't have an expectation to see Christ in the sky, because then the Bible's not true. And so that's why it's important, to have that thing be out, because the plagues that they're going to be administering involves the mark of the beast. And so that's an important aspect of being able to wait and expect Christ to return, is that has to be out. And so everybody knows, what I teach that it is. And so, I'm fully expecting that event in Acts to take place again, and then very, very soon. So Revelation 11:1, and there was given me a reed like unto a rod, and the angel stood, saying, rise and measure the temple of God and the altar and them that worship therein. So this is a reference to, the salvation event. And so this is why the Bible, to me, is just fascinating, and just how consistent it is. So I'll read this in Mark 13:27. Mark 13:27. And then shall he send his angels and gather together his elect from the four winds, from the uttermost parts of the earth to the uttermost part of heaven. And that's in Acts 13:27, 2 sevens, 14. And so it's this is the salvation event, for God's elect. And so that's reference here. And so that coded language, I wouldn't say it's really even coded, but it said, and there was given me a reed like unto a rod. I'll explain that. And the angel stood, saying, rise. So when Christ says that he's going to raise up a group on the last day, this is talking about salvation. Okay. And then it's going to tell us who it is. And measure the temple of God and the altar and them that worship therein. And so this is a group that's has risen, okay, been taken away. And then it says, measure the temple of God. And we'll get an understanding on that in Revelation 21. And then it says, and them that worship therein. So it's a group that's already worshiping, in that, in the spirit realm. And so we get the understanding of what that is. in Revelation 21:15. And he that talked to me had a golden reed to measure the city and the gates thereof and the wall thereof. Verse 16, and the city lieth foursquare, and the length is as large as a breadth, and he measured the city with a reed. 12,000 furlongs, the length and breadth and height of it are equal. And so verse 14, so I'll read up, and the wall of the city had 12 foundations, and then the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. And so this is talking about God's elect, okay, the 144,000. And so, and verse 15, and he talked with me, and he that talked with me had a golden reed to measure the city. And so this is the same language that's being used in Revelation 11. And there was given me a reed like unto a rod, and the angel stood saying, rise, okay, and measure the temple of God and the altar and them that worship therein. So the temple is the elect, and the altar, which is where they'll be worshiping, and them that worship therein is the actual elect. Okay, the 144,000, which is where God's Spirit dwells on earth. Okay, and so that's a reference to salvation. And so that has not happened yet. And so, again, anytime anybody reads this verse and doesn't understand the very first verse, I know that they don't have understanding on this chapter. And then, it couldn't be more obvious that that's the case. That's the understanding. Verse 2, but the court which is without the temple, leave it out and measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles, in the holy city shall they tread underfoot 40 and 2 months. So this holy city is the elect, which will eventually come down to heaven as a bride, prepared. And so this is all literal. Again, this is the amazing thing about the Bible. And so, but the court which is without the temple, so all the other, nations, leave out and measure it not. This is the mixed multitude in Revelation 7. For it is given unto the Gentiles, in the holy city shall they tread underfoot, under the feet of the holy city, which is the elect in the spirit realm. And so it's the earth now is given unto this Gentile rulership for 42 months. And so this is the time of the two witnesses, and the great tribulation. And they're exempt from that because of 1 Thessalonians 5:9. God has not appointed that group to wrath. And so now he's going to sift out that group, in Revelation 7. And so, I'll read that just to get the precept on that. And so a majority of the earth God hates because they've taken the mark already. So he's sifting out this group. Revelation 7:9, and at that 7 plus 9 is 16. They're going through the Revelation 16. After this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude, which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands. And so if they stood before the throne and before the Lamb, what does that mean? Okay, the throne of God is symbolic of the elect, and before the Lamb, clothed in white robes and palms in their hands. So this is a group, which is the court, which is without the temple, that will serve the elect, in the kingdom. And so that's the understanding on, verse 2. Okay, and so that's the setup now. So the elect are taken away. And again, this always follows it's the same pattern. It's the same sequence here and everywhere. And so the 144,000 are taken away. And then, so now we have this literal time period of 42 months, and it's reaffirmed in verse 3 that it's a literal time period. Okay. Verse 3, and I'll give power unto my two witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. And so everything about that is completely literal. There's no reason for us to read any of this stuff. All of it is literal. Okay. It's just people don't have understanding. They don't know what it means. When it says rise, it literally means rise. When it says measure the temple, it says measure it. Okay. It's 144,000. It says literally, it's given unto the Gentiles, and then the holy city shall they tread underfoot 42 months. That's also literal. And so when somebody reads this, and the other interpretations that I've heard are stupid, they have to just make up stuff, and then when somebody starts making up things, you just start realizing what they're saying is complete nonsense. And so, there's no way you can read this entire chapter and then come to the conclusion that it's all symbolic or something like that. It does not make sense because it's making very, very definitive statements. And yeah, okay, if maybe one verse, you were like, yeah, it's, it's symbolic of something, that's different. But The only other interpretation that I've heard are people just literally winging it when they read it. Like it's just complete nonsense. And so, that's their God, that's told them that. And so I'm told that all these things are very, very literal. And so, and again, we have no reason to not believe that, and so, and for it and it cannot be in anything that has happened in prior generations, because this is in the book of Revelation. And again, it's referenced again in Acts 1. So it definitely involves things in the last days. So that's clear. So first and foremost, we're going to keep an eye out, so to speak, for two witnesses. And then the way we're going to know that they are the two witnesses, they're going to have power. They're going to be prophesying, and they're going to be clothed in sackcloth. So we're going to start getting clues about who they are, and like, how do we identify them? If somebody claims that they are, well, then they're going to have to be able to answer these questions. Okay. So anybody walking around that says that they're the fulfillment of Revelation 11, you just bring the verse chapter to them and you just read it to them and say, okay, well, I see maybe like sackcloth or whatever, which is end times teachers' only argument that that they're fulfilling this, which is crazy. And they're not even doing that anymore. And so that's okay. Well, then where's the power and where's the prophesying for 1260 days? Like, you can't be a prophet and say, I don't know, maybe it might be this, might be that. I don't know. We'll have to see. Like, that's not what a prophet is. Okay. These are the only true prophets in the last days. Everybody else is under a deception, and then the elect are out of that deception, but there's no other real prophets in the last days except these two men. That's it. Okay. And then the reason it is only these two men is because the entire world has been deceived, by the spinning ball earth and lots of other deceptions. And then there's just a tremendous amount of evil on the earth. So it's not going to be like, it's not going to be for everybody, to be able to prophesy very precisely. And then more importantly, maybe is to even have the power that they're given, and so it has to be very, very righteous souls. And that's why they're wearing white, in Acts 1. So it's Moses and Elijah. Verse 4, these are the two olive trees and two candlesticks standing before the God of the earth. And so they're in the presence of God. And so that's a tall order, and so they're obviously very, very powerful, and then very, very righteous souls, because God does not allow just like random people to be in his presence or anything like that. So needless to say, they're going to be very, very pure entities. And again, it's consistent with the whole narrative of the Bible. Like, there's nothing really actually. I mean, it's hard for us to imagine these things to happen, but it's the same narrative, over and over again. First Kings 18:15. Adds like the 33. It's a righteous rulership. And Elijah said, as the Lord of hosts liveth, before whom I stand, I will surely show myself unto him today. And so Moses and Elijah are God's right and left hand. Okay. They're his right and left hand man, so to speak. And so that's who is being talked about here. So again, Revelation 11:3, 11 times 3 is 33. Okay. And so they're going to have power. It's going to be two men. Okay. And they're going to prophesy. And then it says for a very specific time period, 1260 days. And we're going to also find out where they're going to be. Verse 4, these are the two olive trees and the two candlesticks standing before the God of the earth. So Revelation 11:4, the precept for that is Zechariah 4:11. So that just shows the numbers, and the amazing structure of the Bible. And so that's 4 times 11 is 44. Okay. So when the two witnesses are here, the elect are taken away. And so there's like a balance of power. And so the precept for Revelation 11:4 is Zechariah 4:11. Then answered I and said unto him, what are these two olive trees upon the right side of the candlestick and upon the left side thereof? And so this candlestick is a beam that emanates from the UFO, from Christ's UFO. Okay. And so these two olive trees, maybe they'll have the shape of like a tree, of like a pyramid, and that's where all these Illuminati people use like pyramid, and stuff like that. And then they take all that stuff from like the Bible, and from UFOs. And so I remember I was watching like AMTV a couple of days ago, and I was in the chat, saying, like these UFOs are, first I said the Earth is flat and stationary, and a few people, agreed, and even Christopher Green from AMTV is like, yeah, we have a firmament, and he was hinting towards the flat Earth. And then there was like I may actually make a video on this to show these people, but like there was like an account, a YouTube account, literally called "Trust in the Lord Jesus Christ" or something like that. And then he's like, yeah, how do you explain the Coriolis effect if the Earth is flat? So he's like a shill, an actor, like many people. And then he's like, look at the shape of UFOs. They resemble the flat Earth, so that should make you suspicious, when in fact, a normal person would be like, wow, that's an amazing observation. These quote unquote UFOs are very similar in resemblance to the shape of the Earth, a disc with like a dome, which is a firmament, and then people inside. And so God's structure and creation is mimicked and, repeated everywhere. And so the UFOs and the Earth being similar looking is consistent with the God who made the Earth. Okay. And so these olive trees representing of like a pyramid, which is what you would, draw a tree, depict a tree as, like, could very literally be the type of vehicle that Moses and Elijah are in, and so they're in like a pyramid shaped UFO. And so that's what all these people are seeing, John the Revelator and Zechariah. And so they're seeing like UFOs when they're getting these visions, in the last days. And so it's not for people to understand. A majority of people, they don't get it, and like I was asking Perry this because he went to Zechariah 4. I was like, wow, that's brave of you. And so I was asking him, like, what is it talking about, in Zechariah? And he's like, I don't know. He's like, well, you tell me. And I'm like, I don't want to tell you because you're stupid. He went to Zechariah 4, and I was like asking him, what does this mean? Zechariah 4:2, and said unto me, what seest thou? And I said, I have looked, and behold, a candlestick all of gold, and a bowl on top of it. So if you have a candlestick, which is a pipe, okay, a beam with a bowl on top of it, what do you have? Okay, which is, and his 7 lamps thereon, and 7 pipes to the 7 lamps, which are upon the top thereof. So you have these beams, around it. And so this is describing a UFO. Okay. And this is a big one. Okay. This is the one that Christ would be in. And then in verse 3, it says, and 2 olive trees by it, one upon the right side of the bowl and one upon the left side thereof. And so this is talking about Christ's second coming. Okay. In Zechariah and in Revelation 11. So it's clear, who it is. This is not symbolic. It's not 2 nations, a bunch of retards and dummies, stuff like that. So no, this is the same 2 people that it's been in Genesis, in the Gospels, in Acts, in everywhere. Okay. It's the same 2. And it's not going to change just because some retards are on the street and they just make up stuff. Okay. That's stupid. So it's 2 men. Okay. Moses and Elijah. Okay. So, but anyway, I've gone into the videos and all that and explained the Zechariah and all that. So I'm just kind of going over it again, just to remind people that none of this has happened yet. Okay. Not a single word of Revelation 11. And anybody who says it is, or they don't understand what it's being said here, then we just dismiss them. They're just stupid. Verse 5, and if any man will hurt them, first of all, now we have to ask ourselves, why would anybody want to hurt them? It's like when they come, when you see like, UFO sightings and all that, people are like, wow, that's cool. Hey, aliens and all that kind of stuff. Like, no one's going to just hate them if they just come here and like, don't do anything, like if 2 men literally just got beamed here and then just walked around and like, went shopping and, went to the ball games and all that, no one will care. They'll be like, well, that's weird. Like, where did you guys come from? But no one's going to go and like beat them up or anything like that. We said, now we have to start asking ourselves, like, why are people going to hurt them? Verse 5, and if any man will hurt them, fire proceedeth out of their mouth and devoureth their enemies. So why do they have enemies? Okay. And then we'll get an explanation why in the next verse. And if any man will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed. So think about how much God cares about these 2. If you go and try and hurt them, which you will not be able to until the end, God's going to kill that person. And so you could go up to them and just push them, and then God's just going to kill the person. And so he's going to let people know that you're not touching these two. Okay. And he has to give them that much power because they're going to have billions of enemies. And we're going to read that. Okay. And so, just know, okay, like hopefully it should be obvious to people, definitely people that come by here. None of this has happened yet. Okay. And if it did, it would be very obvious if that would have been the case. Verse 6, these have power to shut heaven that it rain not in the days of their prophecy, and have power over waters to turn them to blood and to smite the earth with all plagues as often as it will. So if anybody out there who's joking around, which is what they're doing, people like End Times Teacher and Flat Earth Boxer Revived and all these people, these actors, if they believe that this is them, you have to ask them, like, okay, well then shut the heavens then, okay, and make it not rain, okay. If it's in the days of whatever you're doing, prophesying that this is you, then you should be able to shut heaven that it not rain, and then you should have power over waters to turn it into blood. And be like, all right, show me, okay. Take a small sample of water and bring it to them, and smite the earth with all plagues as often as it will. They need to be able to smite the earth with all plagues as often as they will. And so that just shows how disgusting the world is, that you can have people that read this chapter and then insert themselves into this, and the people that are doing it are mentally retarded. Okay. And so you tell me what kind of world that we live in. Okay. And so that's another aspect of how disgusting this world is. And then again, when the actual two witnesses are on the scene, the fake two witnesses are going to get angry at them because they're like, hey, wait a minute, who are you? Like, we've already fulfilled this and all that kind of stuff. So the religious people are going to go after them. Okay. And be like, why are you doing all this? Okay. Why are you bringing all these plagues and all this evil and all that? We'll know. We're not going to be here. I'm not going to be here during this time. But, a majority of the earth, they're going to be their enemies. Okay. Because they're going to be bringing plagues. Like it says here in verse 6, that's in 11:6-66. That's a clue actually to what their plagues will be. It's in Revelation 16. So that's what's going on. And it's very clear that the majority of the earth hate God. It's like, I don't know, you have to just be around my channel for like a few of my videos and know that pretty much everybody that comes by my channel hates God. And so because they pretend to be these two, which is crazy, and then and if you read certain aspects of the Bible to them, they get angry. And so that's pretty much the entire earth that I've seen. So it doesn't surprise me that they need this kind of power to defend themselves. And then God has to be backing them because they're going to be in enemy territory. The Christians are not going to accept, two men bringing evil to the earth. And then a majority of the Hebrew Israelite movement, they believe that they're the fulfillment of this, which is complete nonsense. So they're finished too. So who's left? Okay. Nobody, and not many people. So that's the thing, is that they're pretty much coming here to wrap it up, and then torment the earth before God burns it all. Okay. So that's very clear to me that's the earth is ready for that. Okay. And the nice thing the thing that makes sense too about this narrative, just from a practical perspective, is that the entire earth is like, doesn't trust the government. Okay. Like it's very obvious, like pretty much everybody, maybe they'll go along with it, but they don't trust. They have an uneasiness about the government in the narrative. So the two witnesses is God providing a new enemy. Okay. Where everybody, the world, can gang up on them. Okay. And be like, oh no, it's not us. Look at these two. They're the ones who are, affecting the food supply and screwing up our economy and all that kind of stuff. So they're going to be the new enemy. Okay. And then they're going to make them the enemy. And then they're going to make the angels, in the UFOs, enemies. And so that's where that's going to brew a space war. Okay. There's no World War III prophesied in the Bible for those dumbos that teach that. Stupid people who also believe that they're this. So you don't take anything that they say seriously. That's dumb. What is prophesied in the Bible is a space war. Okay. Where when Christ returns, after these two men are killed, then the earth has the unction to go and fight and try and kill God again. Can you imagine that? They will not be successful, of course, but that's what's prophesied, in the Bible, is a space war. And that's why they have this new like space force and all that kind of stuff. So God's left-hand side know that this is coming, that there's a massive destruction coming, and they're going to have the nerve to fight, and so that's also prophesied everywhere in the Bible. We find out more about them and where they're going to be here. Verse 7, and when they shall have finished their testimony. And so the precept for that understanding is Revelation 19:10, because it seems to use a change in language. It went from prophesying to testimony, which is strange. Why would it do that? It did that because of this. Revelation 19:10, and I fell at his feet to worship him, and he said unto me, see thou do it not. I am thy fellow servant of thy brethren that have the testimony of Jesus. Worship God, for the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. And so testimony and prophesying is the same thing. That's why it says here in verse 7, and when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascended out of the bottomless pit, that's an 11:7. You have to go 18:666. Okay, these are not in these positions by coincidence. Okay, Revelation 11:7 is talking about the one world government, which has been in place for a long time now. So it requires that whole system to kill them. Okay, that's how much power they have. Verse 7, and when they shall have finished their testimony, prophesying, the beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them and shall overcome them and kill them. And so the precept for that is Revelation 9:11. This also proves that this has not happened already, because this has to be in the last days. Okay, because this happened in the last days, because this is the first woe. Revelation 9:11, and they had a king over them, a king, a one world government, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name is in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon. And so this is the reference to that. One woe is past, and behold, there comes two more woes thereafter. So that's talking about in the last days. So no one can make an argument that, oh no, that happened in the past. It's referring to Moses and Elijah in the past. That doesn't make sense, because it's inconsistent with Revelation 9:11 being in this time. So Revelation 11:7, I'll read that again. When they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascended out of the bottomless pit, which we just read is a one world government, okay, worldwide, shall make war against them and shall overcome them and kill them. So for some reason, the entire earth does not like these two. For some reason, not just where they are in America, but for some reason, the beast does not like these two people. So how is that? It's good. Are they like the Hebrews barking on the street? No one cares about them. We find them funny. Okay, we laugh at them. They're dumbos. And so, is it the Christian church? Who is it then? And so, no one has any major problem with any group or two people to the point where like the whole earth is going to gang up on them, and that there's no one on earth right now like that. And so, it's clearly something that hasn't happened yet. Okay. And the reason that the earth is annoyed by them is because what we read in verse 6. These have the power to shut heaven that it rain not in the days of their prophecy, and have power over waters to turn it into blood. This is a clue for Revelation 16. And to smite the earth with all plagues. That phrase, smite the earth, the whole earth with all plagues, that is for anybody with understanding. They know that that's Revelation 16. That's what I was told. Okay. And so this is the wrath of God. Okay. And so God is using these two men to administer the wrath of God. And that's why the earth is annoyed, to say the least. Okay. They're like, get rid of these two, because they're commanding all these angels to do all this stuff, and they're just destroying everything. Okay. So let's get rid of them. That's how stupid the earth is. Okay. They're not like, oh, God's here. Maybe God's here bringing judgment. They'll be like, no, just kill them too and get rid of them. And let's rejoice. And then, that's how stupid the earth is. They really think that, we just got rid of these two men, like everything's just going to be better after that. That's how dumb, again, Earth is completely mental, and we see that. The truth community is mental. There are people that masquerade around as a fulfillment of this chapter. And like everybody else just like interacts with them like they're normal people. Like any other time you get stoned and just get destroyed. But like everybody thinks, yeah, this is cool, whatever. You can just say whatever you want about the Bible. Not a big deal. That's a majority of you dumbos. And so normally in a real Israelite system, if you don't exhibit the characteristics, which I just read in Revelation 19:10, then they'll kill you. And so the times that we live in now, it's like cool to like pretend like you're the two witnesses. Yeah, whatever. I'll just make a YouTube account and I'll call myself Young Moses or Young Elijah and all the stupid things that all you retards do. And so that's the world that we live in. Okay, look how stupid the religious people are. And so that's why these two need power, because everybody's going to hate them. No, very few people are going to understand, okay, this is God's judgment. And then to, do what it says in Revelation 16, which a normal person would do, but there's not very many normal people. just look at the truth community. Okay. This is why they're doing this. This is why God brings judgment to the earth, is for this. Revelation 16, which is, this is what they're going to be doing in the least, because they can do more if they want to. Revelation 16:9, and men were scorched with great heat and blasphemed the name of God, which had power over these plagues. Again, he gave power to these two witnesses to do these plagues, and they repented not to give him glory. Okay, so they're like, no, they're just going to keep on going, and they will not acknowledge that the God of the Israelites, the God of the Bible, is the God of this whole earth. They will not acknowledge that. Okay, and that's majority of people that come by my channel as well, except for the few who have a functioning brain and don't insert themselves into this chapter. Okay, you don't go to like a grand assembly and just go and stand and sit at the MC desk or at the two most esteemed seats unless you're meant to be sitting there. Okay. And so if somebody does, they'll just be like, what are you doing here? And then they'll just kill them, burn them, get rid of them. What are you doing here? Okay. And so this is exactly what happens in this interaction. God's not going to treat people well who do that. Okay. And so we laugh at them, that do that, but he's not forgiving of that. Okay. So if you believe you're one of the two witnesses, you have to prove it. Okay. And I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say. Like, you'd have to be completely mental to be masquerading around as a fulfillment of the Bible prophecy when you're not. Okay. Matthew 22:12, you have together 34, 444, FFF 666. Matthew 22:12, and he saith unto him, friend, how comest thou in hither not having a wedding garment? And he was speechless. So if you ask End Times Teacher and all these other Hebrews and all these other bird brains, prove it, they'll just be like, they don't want to talk about it. They'll be speechless, just like this. Okay. Then said he, the king, to his servants, bind him hand and foot and take him away and cast him into utter darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth, which is the lake of fire. And so verse 14, verse 14, for many are called, but few are chosen. Okay. And that's in Matthew 22:14, 36, 666 in the last days. And so that's what's going to happen. Okay. Because verse 11, and when the king came in to see the guests, he saw there a man which had not a wedding garment. He'd be like, what are you doing here? It's like, why are you sitting in the seat of my two witnesses? Okay. And then you'll just burn them. Okay. And we don't care. Burn their whole family too. Perfect. Okay. If you're dumb enough to insert yourself into this chapter, you have to be on a next level retardation. Okay. That's supremely retarded. And then I see that, we see that with the quote unquote black Hebrew Israelites. So they're just totally mental. They're dumber than the Christians. The Christians would not even be dumb enough to read Revelation 11 and be like, yeah, that's us. They don't know. They'll be like, yeah, it's Enoch, Elijah, Moses, all that. They'll be in Jerusalem, but they'll never say it's me. It's, oh, that's Joel Osteen and John MacArthur. Or they'll never say anything like that because they're not that stupid. But the Hebrews are definitely dumb enough to say that, and we see that. So they're totally mental. And so fair warning, okay, anybody out there who's stupid enough to do that, you're going to get what I just read. Okay. And we don't care because you're stupid. Where are we here? I'll read verse 7 again. And when they shall have finished their testimony, prophesying, which nobody else is doing accurately, the beast, because they can't, because they're the only true prophets in the last days. And so that we would then be able to go to anybody and be like, say something. Okay. And then no one can do it, including myself. I don't consider myself quote unquote prophet. I consider myself not deceived. Okay. The only true prophets in the last days are these two men. Okay. And they're not here yet. And if they were, then they would have all these characteristics. And then we'd be like, okay, those are the two witnesses. Cause you just read the chapter and be like, okay, that's where it is. Sackcloth, power, 1260 days, testifying, and then they'll have understanding, on all these different things. And they're going to tell you, they're going to have power over the whole earth. Okay. Yeah. It's raining right now. Just make it stop and it'll stop raining. Okay. Because God gave them that power. And so obviously, needless to say, we have not seen that. Not even close. Okay. Majority of people don't even know how to read and write that come by my channel. And then the religious people out there, they're just completely stupid. So it hasn't happened yet. Okay. And if anybody thinks that it is, they're stupid. Verse 7, and when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascended to the bottomless pit shall make war against them and shall overcome them and kill them. So that's a lot of power if you have to get the world to gang up on them. Verse 8, and their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. People get simple and they say, oh, this is a city. Well, why is it comparing a city to Sodom and Egypt? Are those cities? Okay. And so how does that make any sense? And so like, that doesn't make sense. Egypt is not a city, okay, or anything like that. So that doesn't make sense. And so these are this is language, okay, that tells us where they're going to be, okay. And spiritually, Sodom is clearly America, okay. Spiritually, Egypt is America because of Deuteronomy 28:68. And where also our Lord was crucified is talking about Revelation 17 and 18. A place on earth where it just spread its evil and its philosophies worldwide. And so they have essentially crucified God, okay, and truth. Christ is the way, the truth, and life. So they've crucified the way to live. They've crucified life, okay, through abortion and all that kind of stuff. And they've crucified the truth, the way, the truth, and the life, okay. And so they've crucified all those things, okay. So it's all about death, okay, and confusion and lies. Okay. And so that's very clearly America. And just read Revelation 17 and 18. I've done many lessons on that. So that's what it means when it says spiritually, where also our Lord was crucified. So they're attempting to kill God again through the two witnesses because they represent him. And so they're going to be in a place that if God puts his representatives there, they try and kill them. And so that just shows again how evil the world is, where God brings his representatives and then they'll kill him. And then when Christ returns with the saints, all of them, they're going to still try and kill them. So that's what we're waiting to see, is God returning through his son and then seeing how the world reacts. If God returned and then they were like, oh, Christ is here. Oh, whoops, sorry. Can you help us make this better? Can you help us, fix the world and all that? He wouldn't burn them. He'd be like, okay, let's fix this. And then the problem is that when Christ does return, and when he was here on the scene the first time, like, they crucify him. And so that's why this earth is hell, because whenever God brings himself or his representatives here, the earth tries to get rid of them and kill them and be like, shut up. We don't want to hear your prophesying or your testimony or your truth or anything like that. The truth, the way, and the life, we don't want any of those. Get that out of here. So that's further proof that we're in hell when this happens. Okay. So they're going to be in America. They're not going to be in Jerusalem or the Vatican or wherever the hell people say, stupid people. Verse 9, and they of the people and kindreds and tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies 3 days and a half and shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put in graves. So they don't have any family. Okay. They don't have a brother or a cousin or something to come and bury them. They're just like, leave them there. And then this makes sense, because if they were here and had a family, their family would be like, okay, let's deal with the body and all that kind of stuff. But their family, quote unquote family, is God. Okay. And so they're just like, leave the bodies there. Who cares? Okay. And then the quote family member, their family member, which is God, he'll take the bodies away because they're precious to him. And so that's how disgusting the world is. Okay. Verse 10, and they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them and make merry and shall send gifts to one another, because these two prophets tormented them that dwell on the earth, on the earth. Okay. And so somehow these two men were tormenting the entire earth. And just by coincidence, it's in Revelation 16. Okay. That goes in detail how they're doing it. Okay. And so this also shows that at the end of the Great Tribulation, okay, people are still like sending packages to one another. So God is still making it somewhat livable. Okay. But they're obviously like in rough shape because they've gone through all of the plagues at this point. And so, but this is still the thing. After, America's still kicking, like there's still packages being sent here and all that kind of stuff. But they've gone through the sores, they've gone through the famines and all that kind of stuff. But it's not complete destruction. And so this also proves that this has to happen very, very soon, because America's hanging by a thread right now. And none of these things have happened yet in Revelation 11 or Revelation 16. So if America's hanging by a thread right now, how is it going to withstand this? If you read Revelation 11 and 16, they're sister chapters. You read them in parallel, and they end in the same way. So that's my position, is that for the Bible to be true, not me, for these words to be true, Revelation 11 and 16 has to start soon. It has to, because again, they're in America. And then for anybody who has a functioning brain and sees what's going on, they see that America is crumbling. I saw a stat, 64% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. That's not a good situation. That's not 5%. If it was 5%, yeah, maybe you could deal with that, 5 or 10%. 64%. Okay. And I think 70% of millennials, so that's a high number. And it's not getting any better because we see another wave coming and all that kind of stuff. So this very clearly has to begin soon for God to be true, not me, because I didn't write these words. So that's my, earnest expectation that, it has to be, beginning soon. And the world needs it because everybody's tired of the government. So they need a new enemy, and it's going to be these two. All right. So I'll read verse 10 again. And they that dwell upon the earth, the whole earth. Okay. The whole earth doesn't know who Joel Osteen is, or TD Jakes, or Creflo Dollar, or Tahar, or End Time. They don't know who these people are. They're just a bunch of random characters who have like churches and stuff. No one cares what they're doing. Okay, there's a bunch of goofballs. And so know that they're not tormenting the earth with their truth or whatever the hell they talk about. Yahushai Rakrakadosh, or whatever the hell they're talking about. That's absolutely stupid. Verse 10, and they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them and make merry and send gifts to one another, because these two prophets tormented them that dwell on the earth. So they're not just prophets like with lip service. They had power, okay, to torment them that dwell on the earth. So that's very clearly nothing that we've seen, okay? And I ask anybody out there with a functioning brain, retract your statement that you're fulfilling these if you have a functioning brain. Don't do that. Delete all your videos on your channel saying you're the fulfillment of the two witnesses. Wake up, okay? That's absolute nonsense. And you're completely mental and belong in a mental institution if you believe that you're fulfilling these words. That's absolutely ridiculous, okay? And you deserve to get made fun of. And people are like, why are you so angry at End Time Teacher and Bible Defender? Because those morons think that, like, if for even like a moment, they think that this is being fulfilled right now with these dumbos that are on the street. Are you kidding me? So they deserve to get made fun of. And then if you're down with them, I'm going to make fun of you too. Okay. When I ask you, hey, do you believe that? And then you're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, you're stupid. Okay. Like they are. And so I don't know if Bible Defender is fully on board with that. We went back and forth on email today, which again inspired me to do this video. But if he's come out of that, then I don't think that he's crazy anymore. Okay, at least on this topic. And it looks like he's making some progress on the mark of the beast. So, but like End Times Teacher will read this and be like, yeah, that's us. It's like him and Sakari and GMS and all these other idiots. And they can't even get their story straight. So in the past, they're teaching, Romans, to obey your government. And then now all of a sudden, Ramlab saying, oh, no, that's not talking about the government. It's like they're backtracking on all their teaching and, going back and forth, and they don't know what the hell is going on. So that's crazy. Okay. So I will not accept a fulfillment of this chapter until I can go up to two men or anybody. And then if somebody thinks that it's them, I'm going to read it to you. And then you're going to have to explain it to me and demonstrate those powers. And if you can't, then I'm going to call you an antichrist. And then I'm going to wish the lake of fire on you, burned. Okay. And so that's the way it is. And that's the beautiful thing about the Bible, is that especially a chapter like this, it's very, very clear. It's the same thing with Christ. When Christ was prophesied, you could just read it, and he's the fulfillment, and then it would be like, okay, that's who we're looking for. And then when John the Baptist was asking if you're the one that we should be looking for, he's like, if you don't trust my words, look at the things that I'm doing. Okay. Look at my actions, look at my power. And that's the same thing with these two. Okay. It's not just going to be people talking. They're going to have power to torment the earth. Okay. And so none of Revelation 11 has been fulfilled yet. Not a single word, but we're anxious for it. Okay. Verse 11, and after 3 days and a half, spirit of life from God. So God performed the quote unquote resurrection. Okay. And so this is their resurrection, the two witnesses. This is the resurrection of the just. They'll never have to die again. Okay. But they do die a physical death here. And so they are, now resurrected to immortal life. They will never have to come into a body and die anymore, because everybody now on God's right-hand side has been taken off the earth, except the remnant, which are in the Middle East. And we're going to read about them here. So he's going to protect them. But now Moses and Elijah will never die again. Okay, so they're going to return to the kingdom, of course, in an exalted position. So this is their quote unquote salvation, and resurrection. Okay. And listen to this. And after 3 days and a half, notice how their ministry mimics Christ's ministry. After 3 days and a half, then they were taken away. So very similar to Christ, being resurrected, after 3 days. So and this time period of 1260 days, I wouldn't be surprised if Christ's ministry was 1260 days as well. And after 3 days and a half, the spirit of life from God entered into them, and they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them. And so they're like, whoa, you know how they were happy earlier? Hey, whatever, we killed them and all that. They're like, wait a minute. Okay, like what's going on now? And so now they're about to get their final destruction when Christ returns with all of his saints, according to 1 Thessalonians 3:13 and everything. So every sequence video that I posted. So that's an amazing thing. Now they're like, okay, we didn't win. Okay. Verse 12, and they had a great voice from heaven, and they heard a great voice from heaven saying unto them, come up hither. And they ascended up to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies beheld them. This cloud is a UFO. Okay. Verse 13, in the same hour, there was a great earthquake, and the 10th part of the city fell, and in the earthquake were slain and men 7,000, and the remnant were affrighted and gave glory to the God of heaven. And so that earthquake is the same one that if you read Revelation 16, it's the same one in Revelation 16:18. And there were great voices and thunders and lightnings, and there were voices, we just read, and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth, so mighty an earthquake and so great. That's talking about the same earthquake, in Revelation 11. And so those two chapters are sister chapters. Okay. And so that's very, very important. And this remnant, if you want to get an understanding on that, you got to read Second Ezra to get the understanding on who that is. Okay. It's Second Ezra 13. In starting, you can start, in verse 47, the highest shall stay the springs of the stream again, that they may go through. Therefore, thou sawest the multitude with peace. And so this is the group of Israelites that left captivity, that did not allow them to honor God's laws. And the real Israelites, not the people that I see on YouTube, they say bye. Okay. If they're not allowed to keep God's laws, they say, we're out of here. Okay. They call on their God, which is what we're doing now for salvation. But in that time, they called on their God, and then their God took them to a distant region. Verse 40, those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their land in the time of Hosea the king, whom Salmanasar, the king of Assyria, led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so they came into another land. But they took this counsel among themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth in a further country which mankind never dwelt. Verse 42, that they might keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land. So we're not allowed to keep God's statutes. So we're asking our God to take us out. Okay. And then ultimately in the kingdom, where those laws will be put on a group's inward part. And so all of us are collectively asking, we're in a lawless world, whether we're an Israelite or not, we're all complaining to God, being like, this world, this country, America is lawless. Take us out. Okay. Bye. We don't want to be here. And so we just are begging every day. But this group calls on their God. Okay. The God of the Israelites. Verse 42, that they might keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land. And so they'll rather move or die than stay and dishonor God's laws. They're not going to make excuses like, yeah, whatever, that verse doesn't mean that, like End Times Teacher and Bible Defender and these people, Tahar and these dumbos. They're not like that. They read the Bible and they're like, this book or take my life. Okay, whatever you want. It doesn't make a difference. And so that's their attitude. Okay. And so you do not see that. Definitely not on YouTube. Okay. Verse 43, and they entered into Euphrates by the narrow places of the river. Verse 44, for the Most High then showed signs for them and held still the flood till they were passed over. Verse 45, through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half. That's a long journey. So somebody had to feed them. So God had to be with them while they made that journey. And the same region is called Arzareth. Verse 46, then dwelt they there until the latter time. This is the key part. Then dwelt they there until the latter time, in that place that's being described. And now when they shall begin to come. Okay, this is after the wrath of God. Verse 47, the highest shall stay the springs of the stream again. Revelation 16, that's when he does it. That they may go through. Therefore thou sawest thou the multitude with peace. And so that's the group that's being talked about in Revelation 11. And any other teaching is Antichrist. Okay, this is not a group in America. A lot of you dumbos don't even know what the hell's going on with the Bible. You people are stupid. Verse 13, I'll read again. In that same hour, there was a great earthquake, and the 10th part of the city fell again. That earthquake, read Revelation 16, it's the same one. And in the earthquake were slain of men 7,000, and the remnant, which I just read, were frightened. But listen to this, and gave glory to the God of heaven. Okay, so they're Israelites. Verse 14, the second woe was past, and behold, the third woe come quickly. And so, no, this is not World War II for you idiots that teach that. This is the second woe. It's after the Great Tribulation. And so what comes now is the final wrath of God, and then this is going to happen. Verse 15, and the seventh angel sounded, and there was a great voice in heaven saying, the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord. Why? Because God's people are no longer on earth allowing to be persecuted and killed, because they're all taken away, except the remnant, which he will protect, like I just read, or you should read in 2 Ezra 13. So now there's about to be the ass whooping of all ass whoopings. Okay. And so there's no power structure on earth anymore that matters. God's just going to burn the whole thing, burn all of it. Okay. And you get that understanding everywhere in the Bible, but most notably in Isaiah 10. And so, that's why there's a translation. Okay. There's a power structure shift that's happening. Isaiah 10, 17, and the light of Israel shall be for a fire, and his Holy One for a flame, and it shall burn and devour his thorns and his briars in one day, and shall consume the glory of his forest and of his fruitful field, both soul and body. Okay. And they shall be as when a standard bearer fainteth. Listen to this. And the rest of the trees of his forest shall be few, a child may write them down. Okay. He's going to burn everything. Okay. And so, but what we read in 2 Ezra, he'll protect that group, in Arzareth. It's in a distant region. No one knows. No one bothers them. Okay. And so that's what's happening here in verse 15. Verse 16, and the 20 and the 4 and 20 elders which sat before God on their seats fell upon their faces and worship God. Okay. What are these seats? Why does it keep saying that they're on their seats? Okay, because they're in these so-called UFOs. Okay. So the Bible's literal, and a lot of people don't get it, and it's not for them. Verse 17, saying, we give thee thanks, O God, O Lord God Almighty, which art and wast and art to come, because thou hast taken to thee thy great power and hast reigned. Why is it talking about Christ returning when it's after the two witnesses are taken away? Because he's going to return, and so that's what everybody except myself doesn't understand that I've seen. And so they don't understand that Christ is going to return to take away his elect, that he's going to return with his elect. 1 Thessalonians 3:13, this is the new power structure, 3:13, 3:3, 33. Okay, to the end he may establish, to the end he may establish your hearts unblameable in holiness, so they're returning in a glorified state before God, even our Father. Okay, they were worshiping in the altar at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ with all of his saints. So how can Christ return with all of his saints when the saints are on the earth? Okay, so they have to be taken away first. Okay, and then return with him. So that's what people don't understand. And it's very clear that it's not, the Bible's not for them. So that's what it means when it says here, which sat before God on their seats. Okay, they're in these vehicles, these quote unquote UFO, what the world would call UFOs, but they're chariots. And they look like, some of them look like the Earth, okay, like a disc, with a dome on it, and then somebody inside, manning that vehicle. And so, it's consistent, with God's creation. Verse 17, saying, we give thee thanks, O Lord God Almighty, which art and wast and art to come, because thou hast taken to thee thy great power and hast reigned. Verse 18, and the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come. So now this is the final wrath of God. And the time of the dead that they should be judged, this is all the people on God's left-hand side, and that thou shouldest give us reward unto the servants, the prophets, and to the saints. So the prophets are the two witnesses, the saints are the elect, and them that fear thy name, small and great, this is the mixed multitude, and destroy them which destroy the earth, okay, which is God's left-hand side. And so everybody's accounted for. Everybody's like, yeah, what if this person dies and this and that? Everybody is accounted for in verse 18. You're in one of those groups, okay? You're either the prophets, which is the two witnesses. You're either the saints of the elect, or them that fear thy name, small and great, which is the mixed multitude. So everybody's accounted for. And then the rest of the people are the shouldest destroy them, which destroy the earth. Those are all the liars. Okay. The people that go and masquerade around us, the two witnesses, okay, they're part of that group. They're destroying the earth with lies, being a false witness. And so everybody's accounted for in Revelation 11:18. Notice it's in 18:666. Okay. Verse 19, and the temple of God was opened in heaven, and there was seen in the temple the ark of his testament, and there were lightnings and voices and thunders and earthquake and great hail. So this wrath, this period is 30 days, and that's in Zechariah. And so this is when God just kills everything, and destroys everything. In Zechariah 11:8, it explains the length of this time period. And so this is the space war, okay, that was prophesied in Ezra as well, and everywhere in Revelation 14 as well. Zechariah 11:8, Isaiah 66:15 is a good precept for that. Zephaniah 1:18 is another precept for that. This one as well. Zechariah 11:8, 3 shepherds also I'll cut off in 1 month, okay, and my soul loathed them, and their soul also abhorred me. And so this is that 30-day period. In the book of Daniel, 1260 is the time of the two witnesses. This 30 days is the wrath. And then there's a 45 days of the miracles that we just read for that group in Arzareth. So that's the understanding on the 1335. And, that's where we're at. Verse 19, and the temple of God was opened in heaven, and there was seen in his temple the ark of his testament, and there were lightnings and voices and thunderings and earthquake and great hail. And so if you read Revelation 16, it's the same thing. It's the same hail. Okay. And they're not missiles, which end-time teacher teach it, which is stupid. Revelation 16:21, and there fell upon men a great hail out of heaven, every stone about the weight of a talent, and men blasphemed God because of the plague of the hail, for the plague thereof was exceedingly great. Okay. So Revelation 11 and Revelation 16 are sister chapters. They are documenting the same thing. Okay. And so if you read Revelation 16, verse 1, and I heard a great voice out of the temple saying to the 7 angels, go your ways and pour out the vials of the wrath of God upon the earth. And the first went out, and the second angel went out, and the third angel went out, and the fourth angel went out. And so they're in these so-called UFOs. Okay. And so they're going to be instructed to do destruction, at least what's in here, and whatever they ask for on the ground, the two witnesses. And so what I suspect the logic of that is that the people on earth are not going to be able to go and talk to these UFOs, these angels, like it says here, because they're just going to be doing what they're told. Okay, you can't blow on a blowhorn or ask them, hey, what are you guys doing? But the two men on earth, they'll know, because they were brought here at the beginning of this time period. And so they're going to be the ones who are going to have to explain, what are those people doing? Okay, what are those things? And so then they'll explain, this is God's wrath and stuff. So they're the sort of feet on the ground representatives of all the stuff that's going on in the sky. And they're going to be explaining, to the world what's happening, And so, and a lot of people, like we just read, are going to get angry. that at them, because like they think that they're the ones that are doing that, and they are, but it's ultimately God doing it. And so that's the way that I suspect the Bible is going to play out, and then I would assume very, very soon, because the mark is out, to a vast number of people. So, and the first plague in Revelation 16 involves the mark of the beast. So this Revelation 16 and 11 cannot happen until the mark is at least out. And it doesn't have to be out to everybody. Because of this reason, Revelation 16:2, and the first went out and poured out his vial upon the earth, and there fell a noisome and grievous sore upon the men which had the mark of the beast, and upon them which worshipped his image. So there's two groups of people of that group that we just read in Revelation 11. Of this group, and Revelation 11:18, and shouldest destroy them which destroy the earth. That's God's left-hand side. There's two groups of people in there. There's a group that have taken the mark, and then there's another group that worshipped his image, okay, which is the left-hand side, the rest of God's left-hand side. So the Bible prophesies that the sores will go out on people prior to the mark going out to everybody on God's left-hand side. Of course, God's right-hand side is not going to take it. So it's now after these sores, I suspect everybody's going to be pushed and forced. There's no recommendation anymore. Everybody's got to take the mark now. Okay. Because like, look at the sores, it's billions of people. And so maybe it'll happen in stages, like they'll say, okay, there's something contagious going on, and then, they have to contain it. Or God could literally just do it in one day, just have all these UFOs hover over the sky, and just everybody wakes up with like boils on their body, on God's left-hand side. However he does it, we don't know. But, then that's only one of the plagues. Then there's another one. And so no one at this time is going to be like, eating and drinking and giving into marriage and being in a cheerful mood. They're going to be like tormented. And so for the verse for Christ where he says that when he returns in Matthew 24, it's going to be like them eating and drinking and giving to marriage, it has to be before this, because there's no way people with billions of people with boils on their body are going to be like eating and drinking and giving into marriage. They're going to have like disgusting, pus-filled boils, sores. So like no one's going to be like, hey, let's get married. Let's go on a date, and that kind of thing. So that also is proof that what everybody else is teaching is completely stupid. So the Bible only makes sense if Christ returns prior to this, and then again at the end with all of his saints. And so that's unique, and then it's obviously true. And so for me, from my vantage point, it's not an issue of like the teaching at this point. It's, are these things going to happen? Because God's running out of time, and so it's because America's crumbling, and then we also, just people like me and the few people that come by here, like we understand that everybody else is not teaching this, even though it's obviously true. And so, well, we don't want to be here, okay, because they're all evil and stupid. So the religious people, and definitely the non-religious people. So, it's kind of like the elephant in the room, and so maybe the Bible is just not true, which is the only other option to what I teach. It's that is not true. It's not like, oh, there's somebody else with a better understanding. No, it's like, it's either the Bible is true and these things are going to happen soon, or it's not. Okay. And there's no like, yeah, just take the Old Testament, or maybe just get rid of Revelation and you'll be okay. No, it's like, you can't do that. Like once you take away even a chapter, like a lot of people have taken out Revelation 11 or 16, like the Bible won't make sense. And so God's promised to fulfill all of these words. Okay. And he's going to fulfill the words with righteous people, because that's what he always does. And so just looking around on earth, and me included, it's not us. Okay. It cannot be us, because our hands are stained, some more than others, but it's very clear that who these two men are. Okay. And they basically have to be. And so that's what I'm waiting for, so that's my, I've gone through this. It's not, I haven't shared anything new today, but just for people out there, if you keep pretending to be somebody that you're not, and this is more fundamental, not even just pretending to be one of the two witnesses or something, but If you pretend to be somebody that you're not, then, God doesn't like you. Okay. If you're faking it or whatever. And so me and the few people come by here, we don't fake it anymore. We don't want to be an actor. We don't want to pretend to care about the world. We don't care about the world. And that's okay. And so we were actors, throughout our life. But now we're tired of it, And so if you're pretending to be somebody else, like the two witnesses, which is incredibly stupid, or whatever you're pretending to be, God hates you. Okay. And so don't do that, and I would just say we've done that throughout our life, but what's that going to benefit you? Pretending to be somebody that you're clearly not. Okay. And so, I think that people know who I'm talking about, but that's crazy, so just wake up. But Michael, thanks for coming by. You quoted John 3:16. Why'd you quote that? If you're still here, why'd you quote John 3:16? What's the purpose of that? I'll read it. It's never a bad idea to read it, but notice also that right before John 3:16 is what, let's read the verses prior to that. Verse 13, and no man hath ascended up to heaven, but he that came down from heaven. This is Christ, even the Son of Man, which is in heaven. Okay, verse 14, and as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up. And so Moses and Elijah are constantly referenced in proximity to Christ. And so verse 15, that whosoever believeth him should not perish, but have eternal life. So prior to that, in verse 14 and 15 together, is referencing salvation, because it's talking about having eternal life. And then in that day, Moses will be here, in America. And so it's the same narrative over and over again. And so verse 16, for God so loved the world. If you look up that word, it says cosmos. Okay. And it's talking about an orderly arrangement, a government. Okay. Which is his elect. Okay. That's the world that God is talking about here. Okay. God hates everybody else on this earth, and he's going to burn them with fire, all the people that destroy the earth. And so he loves them enough to get them to stop doing what they're doing. So he programs people to be evil and to be liars. And the only loving thing for him to do to those people is to destroy them. So they stop. Okay. And he made them that way. So he's always loving the world, but there's a large group of people that have to be destroyed because they will not stop lying. And that's a majority of people that come by my channel. Verse 16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whomsoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. So how do you believe in him? You do this. And so John 4:24-44, God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. What's the truth? It's Christ. Okay, Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. And so in order to worship God, you have to accept his Son. Okay. And then you have to worship in spirit and then in truth. And so we know many truths about this God. And so the judgment that he's bringing, and just what he's done on the cross in the past, who his two witnesses are, what he looks like physically, certain aspects of his appearance. And so if you don't accept those truths, then you're Antichrist. And so then you're not worshiping the Father. And so there's very, very few people that I've seen that that do what it says here, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish and receive salvation. There's very, very few people. Okay. Because when I present things about that God to people, there'll be one or more things that they get offended by. They're like, no, I don't want that. No, I don't. The skin color part, I'm not into that. No, the two witnesses part, nah, I don't know. I'm the two witnesses, or mark of the beast, nah, whatever. I don't know what it is, this and that, or it's a microchip or whatever. They just make up stuff. Okay. And so that's not, if whatever you're saying is not true, then you're Antichrist. And so you don't believe in the Son. And so then you're not a group here that God loves. And so that's why it's very, very, because again, these truths of the Bible are very, very clear. And so that's what I see. just a majority of people that hate God. Verse 17, for God sent not his son into the world to condemn it, the world, which is the elect, but that the world, which is the elect, would be saved. But the world through him might be saved. So not everybody's receiving salvation. Okay. Hopefully people have figured that out now. Okay. If that were the case, then why is there a mark of the beast? Why are there swords? And why is there fire? It's very clearly talking about a group that's saved. And then, so who is that group that's saved? Well, we get that understanding in Matthew 24. Okay. Those who endure till the end will be saved. And so it's a group in the end times. And then it's also a group called the elect. In, Matthew 24:22. Matthew 24:22, and except those days be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. And so that's a group that, like it says here, God is not going to condemn. Okay, he's going to save them, give them everlasting life. Verse 18, he that believeth on him is not condemned, but he that believeth not is condemned already. So they're programmed to be that way. God hates them. Their soul hates God, and God's soul abhors them. That's what I read with that verse with 3 shepherds you're going to cut off in the book of Zechariah. They're programmed that way. The wicked are estranged from the womb, speaking lies, because he has not believed in the name of the only begotten Son of God. And this is the condemnation that light come into the world, and men love darkness rather than light because their deeds are evil. So when God returns and tries to illuminate this world with his light, the entire world says, no, I prefer darkness. God's like, you prefer darkness? Great, I'll give you darkness. Let me read where he does. And it's funny because the earth is stupid. And then he's like, all right, cool. You like darkness so much, I'm going to give you darkness. Okay, literally. And then this is what God's about. He's like, all right, I'll give you this. Revelation 16:10. And the 5th angel poured out his vial upon the seat of the beast, which is America, and his kingdom was full of darkness, and they gnawed their tongues for pain. And so he's like, all right, cool. So I'm going to show you where the headquarters of the darkness is on earth. And then he's going to put a power outage there and then let them deal with that. And can you imagine if there was a power outage in America for even 2 or 3 days, how much crime there's going to be? It's going to be a damn free-for-all. It's going to be disgusting. And so God's like, all right, if you just want to do whatever you want in the darkness, I'll give it to you. Verse 20, for everyone that doeth evil hateth the light, neither cometh to the light, lest his deeds should be reproved. Okay, so they just do everything in secret. And we see that with all these actors. Verse 21, but he that doeth truth, come to the light. Come forward, okay? Tell me, what did God tell you? Okay, I don't see that at all. That his deeds may be made manifest, that they are wrought in God. And so I'm asking Bible Defender because he's asking me questions. I'm like, why don't you go and ask God? Why are you emailing? Why is anybody emailing me questions about different things when they haven't went to go and ask God first? Okay. Like, what's God busy? Okay. Like, what am I God or something? Like, well, why don't you go and ask God if you have questions about the mark of the beast and the 2 witnesses and where we are in the end times and who's the elect and who's everything? So go and ask God. Okay. But everybody's too busy worshiping Satan that they don't do that. And that's obvious. It's obviously the case. Everybody just wants to be an actor and a retard instead of, why don't you go and ask God? Okay. What skin color was your son? Go and ask God. Everybody's too busy making stupid music and nonsense and cat noises and whatever the hell you dummies do. Okay. Why don't you go ask God instead of debating me on topics that I'm clearly not going to change my mind? Why don't you go and ask God? Okay. And then come back and then do what we just read. Present your testimony. Okay. And it better be the spirit of prophecy, according to Revelation 19:10, or I'm just going to make fun of you. So again, this is like kind of exaggeration to even have to go through this. The fact that I even have to make a video ever saying that the 2 witnesses are going to be righteous men is, again, proof how stupid this world is. And I don't want to be here. And, just how outlandish the world is. So the Bible is the last thing on this earth that is pure. And so, that's all we have left, and then right on cue, you have Mike come by and say the New Testament's fake and all that kind of stuff. Well, we're going to find out how fake it is because it prophesies that it's going to put sores on God's entire left-hand side. And so do not be surprised if your favorite truther is going to have sores on their body, because they want to go through the great tribulation, right? Like End Times Teacher and Bible Defender and these people, Tahar. So cool. Okay, go through the great tribulation. Then we're going to see like what's on your skin. God's going to show it to people, because that's a unique prophecy, Revelation 16:2, that is not explicitly, it definitely talks about plagues in the Old Testament coming in the last days, but Revelation 16:2 and all of Revelation 16 is very specific. And so is Revelation 13. And so we're going to find out, if the New Testament is true. And then we're going to find out by what happens to people's skin. It's going to be on their body, and it's going to be noisome and grievous. It's going to be obvious. And so it's not going to be like an ingrown hair or something like that. God's going to give it to them and then be like, okay, go figure out how to fix that. And that's just going to be the beginning. Then he's going to start with the famines, and affecting the food supply. And then, like I just read, he's going to go into darkness. And so all these people, all these preppers and all that kind of stuff. And, we're going to find out whether the New Testament's true or not, very, very soon. And it's going to be funny, man. All these people who are all tough, like they got a YouTube account and think that they know something. And then all of a sudden, like God visits. And it's like all of a sudden, oh, whoops, maybe this God is real or something like that. And we don't care. Like if you get the sores, the next thing that's coming to you is fire. And there's no like get rid of the sores and then you're cured or anything, or ask God for forgiveness. It's over at that point. You're on God's left-hand side. And then the next thing that comes after that is fire. Okay. And that fire is going to destroy body and soul. And that's going to be a majority of the truth community, because a majority of the truth community, first of all, they're stupid, but they're Antichrist. And so, and they think it's funny. Like that, it's like a joke. And so it's everybody that I see. And so can't wait. Okay. Hope everyone's doing well. Take care. Bye.